Good morning and welcome to the second one of the year, Conversations with Dr. Johnson.
Good morning. Happy New Year.
And he's still keeping the hat on because he is convinced that he looks better than me with the hat on. That's open for your judgment, and I need some feedback on that.
I think that's just common knowledge.
Touche, like they would say in French. That was like an uppercut, but I'm still in the fight.
That was a knockout punch.
Okay.
All right, today we want to talk about your favorite topic, fats, cholesterol, omega, olive oil, vegetable oils, this deep confusion about fats. So, Dr. Johnson, we're going to start at the beginning, right? Because people start getting involved in this conversation when they go to the doctor and the doctor says, your cholesterol, your LDL, your HDL, so talk to us. Why is that where this big conversation typically begins?
Okay, well, we've all been basically brainwashed to believe that fat is bad for us.
Yes.
And nothing could be further from the truth. We cannot survive without fat, okay? Everybody knows that our body is controlled by our brain. What's our brain made of? Mostly fat.
And water, yeah.
And every cell of your body, and you have approximately 100 trillion cells, every cell of your body has a miniature brain to regulate cell function. What's it made of? Mostly fat, okay? So we cannot survive without fat. If somebody calls you a fathead, that's actually a compliment because we want lots of fat in our brain.
That's why I'm so optimized.
There you go.
All fat. And this is real good fat.
Yes,
Because some people's brain has the bad fat.
yes indeed.
And then their brain is heavy. And then they have brain fog and brain fatigue. And they're stupid. Yeah, they have,
If you say so.
yeah. And it comes mostly from eating bacon and pork and those bad fats.
And farm-raised beef.
And farm-raised beef.
And farm-raised, I should say factory farm.
Factory farming.
Factory farm,
Not
yeah.
grass-fed.
Yeah,
Because whenever we talk grass-fed, you can feel even the Wagyu and those really exotic beefs begin to percolate to the surface.
yeah. I've never been able to afford the Wagyu, so
You have never had it.
I've never had it.
Okay.
Is it as good as they say?
I'm not really a carnivore to that depth, but
Okay.
it's soft, succulent, and just, it melts in your mouth, as they say.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's like butter. But then,
All right, you can buy me some next time we go out to dinner.
if you get rid of the hat soon, so that I'll be the attractive one.
Oh, now my diet has got to be hat-based.
Yes, exactly. All right, so back to the whole discussion about fats.
Yes.
Because in the upper exotic culture, they call them lipids.
Yes.
Right. Lipids now gives us a collective name.
Yeah, it's just a more scientific names for fats.
All right.
Yes.
So why are fats now a big conversation? Yeah, you started with saying that we have been given the impression that fats are bad. But why is the lipid thing a really key indicator of our health, overall health?
Well, because lipids play so many roles in our health.
Yeah.
They're essential for healthy brain, for healthy eyes, for healthy skin, for healthy cell membranes. They're essential for us to fight inflammation and keep it under control.
Yeah.
So there's so many functions. So, we've all been told that saturated fat is the devil. We should avoid it like the plague. And also, nothing could be further from the truth.
Yeah, before you get into saturated, give us the classes of fat first so we know which one you're talking about.
Okay, we have the saturated fats, we have the poly-unsaturated fats, we have the mono-unsaturated fats.
Okay, these are American, so can you go on another level? What is all this saturated business?
Okay,
Is it because they've ate too much? They're
Okay.
saturated?
so saturated fats have all stable bonds, and it's a hydrogen molecule that provides the stability. If a fat in this, it's a long chain, okay? If the fat is missing a hydrogen in one place, then that's a mono-unsaturated fats. The hydrogen saturates it.
Yes.
If the hydrogen is missing in multiple locations, then that's a poly-unsaturated fat.
And the unsaturated aspect of the fat allows it for easier chemical combinations, right?
Yes.
In the food system.
Yes.
That's why historically the concept of being saturated was not a good thing, but the unsaturated would provide good combinations in the biochemistry.
Well, yeah, there were some studies done in the 50s that were not done ethically,
Yes.
and they concluded that fats are bad for us.
Yes.
Okay?
And that's not really true.
Especially saturated fats, and
Yeah,
that's not true.
Yes.
Look, I mentioned earlier that every cell in your body has a miniature brain that's made mostly out of fat. What do we call that miniature brain? We call it the membrane, the cell membrane. The outer wall is the brain of the cell, because it determines what gets in the cell, what is able to get out of the cell.
Yes.
Okay. Now,
It's managing that boundary
Yeah.
of what's inside and what's outside.
Exactly.
And then it's like the policeman saying you can come in,
Yes.
you have the right papers,
Yes.
you can go out.
yes.
And no illegal immigrants are allowed to cross that cellular border.
Okay, now, this cell membrane needs to be flexible, but it also needs to have some strength and sturdiness to it.
Integrity.
So,
yes.
so how do we make it strong and flexible at the same time?
Yeah.
We combine saturated fats with monounsaturated fats, okay? So pretend you're building a brick wall, but instead of the standard mortar, we use some rubberized flexible mortar.
In between.
In between.
Yeah.
Okay, so now the wall is there, it's stable, but if we need to push it and change the shape a little bit, we have the flexibility to do
within
that.
the rubber that's included.
The
yeah.
saturated fats are the bricks.
Yes.
The monounsaturated fats, and in some cases polyunsaturated fats, are the flexible mortar.
Well, yes, that
Okay.
allows us.
So that's why we need both. So
Yes.
approximately 50% of your fat intake should be from healthy saturated fats. It's true that some saturated fats are bad for us,
Yes.
but where we get most of our healthy saturated fats are from grass-fed beef, organic of course, grass-fed butter, organic of course, and coconut oil.
That's so fascinating. Everything grass-fed.
Yes.
And so we're squeezing and getting the milk and the butter all from the grass-fed.
Yeah, well here's the thing.
So what is the factory farming cattle that makes the milk and the fat not good enough?
Okay, because they are fed vegetable oils. They are
Okay.
fed polyunsaturated fats like corn oil, et cetera, et cetera.
And therefore the cow now is not
Now the cow
does
has
not have
incorporated.
integrity for
Yes.
bringing good oils.
Yes, exactly.
In the milk and in the
Exactly.
beef.
Exactly.
Okay, interesting. Because I think people want to know that.
Yes.
Because when they go and buy cheap beef from Costco, they need to know that they're punishing themselves.
Yes.
Right? So you want to buy, or you become a vegetarian. If you're going to eat beef, you want to eat good beef. Very, very important. Go ahead, Dr. Johnson.
Well, I think
You were at the
I
good point
think
there.
I was at a breaking point.
Yes, so now it comes to supplementation. So if I come to you as it is, and I say my cholesterol is too high, I have low of the good fat, which is the HDL, and more of the bad fat, which is LDL. I'm using the common language, and
Right.
you're going to
Right.
walk through that with me.
Yeah.
And then they talk about my triglycerides are
Yes.
low.
Yeah.
Right? That begins to give you a picture. What's going on?
They would never talk about your triglycerides being low. They would talk about them being too high.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Cholesterol is the main fat in the bloodstream that most everybody's heard of. Triglycerides are the other fat. Now, ironically, you would think that eating fat would make your triglycerides go up, but that's not how it works.
Yeah.
It's the sugars and starches and non-fiber carbs that we
get
eat
converted to that fat.
that make the triglycerides go up.
Yeah, because they're converted to that fat.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the vast majority of our cholesterol is produced in our liver, and doesn't have that much to do with the fats or cholesterol that we eat.
And cholesterol is just circulated, right?
Yes, yes.
And filtered out
Yes.
and reused.
Yes.
And it's carrying properties and all of that.
Yeah, now keep in mind that cholesterol is a critically important building block in the human metabolism.
Yeah.
We cannot survive without cholesterol. And occasionally I see people who have been put on high-dose statins by an overzealous mainstream doctor, and their cholesterol readings are actually dangerously low.
Correct.
When your cholesterol readings are dangerously low, you have an increased risk of a stroke, you have an increased risk of cancer.
Yes.
So we don't want our cholesterol to be too low. Like everything else, we want just enough,
Yes.
but not too little and not
Yes.
too much.
Yes.
Balance, we want
Yes.
balance.
Okay, very important because sometimes when we get those measures, we don't really understand what's going on. And there are times when that process of filtration and recycling cholesterol back in the body gets broken.
Yes,
And so we now need to fix it
yes,
so that the liver is extracting and producing the right amount of cholesterol. And cholesterol is being transported to the tissue and not being precipitated in the wrong places. What happens to cause that precipitation to begin?
Well, the number one cause in my experience is an undiagnosed, untreated low thyroid condition.
Wow.
Cholesterol is a critically important metabolic building block, as I said a moment ago. Thyroid is the metabolism hormone. So if your thyroid is low, then your metabolism will be sluggish, and all these metabolic building blocks stack up in the pipeline because they're not being utilized.
I want to confess that since you put me on the thyroid,
Yes.
I noticed that my stomach is going down. It could also be the tubersonic, but I actually feel much better these days when I eat because I'm addressing the thyroid issue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
Plus the other hormonal things that I'm addressing.
Yeah, when I was in medical school in the late 70s, I was taught that when you see high cholesterol, the first thing you do is look for a low thyroid condition.
Interesting.
Couple of years after I got out of medical school is when the statins came on the market.
Yes.
And armies of drug reps started brainwashing doctors across the country that high cholesterol is due to a statin deficiency.
Which is not true.
Which of course is nonsense.
Yes.
Okay. Now, does the statin bring cholesterol down? Yes, it usually does so.
Yeah.
But it can do so at a pretty high cost because statins are toxic to our mitochondria, the cellular power plants
Correct.
throughout our body.
Yes.
Okay.
So typically, when we have high cholesterol in the bloodstream, it's because of that effluent process with the liver that's not extracting and putting the right
Yes.
levels. So it's really about that whole cycle process.
Yes, yes.
It has nothing to do with a statin. Okay.
Yeah.
So how do we fix this, Doc?
How do we? Well, we treat the low thyroid condition if it's present.
Number one.
And that means you have to do state-of-the-art thyroid testing, and you have to interpret it appropriately.
You told me we need to look for the free T3.
Yes, yes, yes.
And most doctors, when they do testing for diagnosis, do the overall T4, total T,
Yes.
and T4. But they don't do the free T3.
Right.
Which is what you're really looking
Yeah,
for. Go ahead, Doc.
T4 and T3 are the two thyroid hormones. T4 is the storage form, the inactive form. Your body has to convert it into T3 before it does much of anything for you.
Yes.
Okay.
And so that we
Now-
want to measure that active form.
Yeah. Now that conversion of T4 to T3 is a metabolic process.
Yes.
So very ironically, as you develop low thyroid, you largely lose your ability to convert T4 into T3. Now the next step in this is the fact that most of our T3 and T4 is bound up to protein.
Okay.
That's the equivalent of putting it in handcuffs. It can't
Yes.
do anything, okay?
Yes.
So total T4 is not a useful
Measure.
test.
Yes.
We need free T4. Total T3 is not a useful test. We need free T3. So we need free T4, free T3, and TSH in order to be a state-of-the-art thyroid
And
gland.
what is TSH?
Thyroid stimulating hormone.
THA, thyroid stimulating hormone. T4, T3, TSH, guys.
Free T4, free
Free
T3.
T3, yes. Just
Yes.
making sure you got all the numbers. Question? Hold on, Doc. Go ahead, Doc. Finish your thought.
Okay, so what was my thought?
You were going to continue around the TSH.
Oh, yes. So, in mainstream medicine, doctors will look at the so-called normal range.
Yes.
And if you're anywhere inside that normal range, they'll say you're fine. Don't worry about it. Holistic doctors know that people with low normal free T3 readings who have multiple symptoms, and just in the last couple of days I've done consultations on patients. One had 15 symptoms of low thyroid. The other had 17 symptoms of low thyroid. We're waiting for their free T3 to come back at this point, but if they're low normal, then we need to optimize their thyroid function. Give them just enough to boost them from low normal to high normal.
Yes.
High normal is optimum.
Yes, which is what I am on. All right, thank you for joining us again in the new year. Happy New Year again. And thank you, Dr. Johnson, for being a great partner
My pleasure.
in playing this game of Conversations with Dr. Johnson. Join us, love us, like us, and share us, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thank you.